Hi, my name is Atif Darush, professor and consultant of obstetrics and gynecology. In this short lecture, I'd like to address some missing issues in the new FDA pregnancy medication safety labeling rule. This is the patient package insert found in all medications in the markets, and the pharmaceutical companies actually write too much information about the drug, about pharmaceutical issues and actions and construct and the nature of this medication and so on. Regarding pregnancy and lactation, some of them write very short notes about the safety during pregnancy, labor, and delivery, or the effect on nursing mothers. And many of them don't have enough information and say that you have to ask your doctor for the safety issues of these drugs during pregnancy and lactation. And the old FDA categorization system is wrote in some of these inserts as category A, B, C, D, X, and sometimes N, which means no risk in human, A, no risk in animal, B, undetermined or cannot be ruled out risk is group C, evidence of risk is group D, contraindicated group X, group N is not determined by FDA. And despite well-known some drugs to be safe during pregnancy, like folic acid, thyroxine, vitamin C, ampicillin, and amoxicillin, and so on, most of the drugs used in the markets are in the group C, which is risk cannot be ruled out. And actually, it represents around 66% of all drugs that are located in group C with limited information. Why limited information? Because this classification is old. It belongs to 1979. Where are the studies, recent studies, after around more than 35 years of this classification or categorization? And some drugs were category C, for example, and now are not category C, like metronidazole, like colchicine, which was thought to be teratogenic in previous studies, old studies, and now it has not been used, it has not been put in the category C because its use in pregnancy is important to decrease the attacks of the familial Mediterranean fever, the symptoms, and decrease amyloidosis and even amyloidosis of the testes and the ovary, which may lead to infertility. So the science is changing and advancing, and this classification or categorization is old, belong to more than 35 years. And here is category D, for example, tetracycline, valproic acid, AC inhibitors, category X, methotrexate, warfarin, and so on. So this old FDA categorization system is actually not practical in modern life, with the wide knowledge of the patients and doctors due to the internet and a lot of publications and a lot of recommendations of the societies. The drawbacks mainly is missing some information about secretion in milk, about the dose of the drug used, and putting in consideration the physiologic change in pregnancy. Some women have chronic illness like asthmatic patients, hypertensives, and so on. How to do with these chronic diseases? Some patients develop pregnancy-induced or pregnancy-aggravated diseases. How to do with those cases? This is not well known. Also, effect on the reproductive functions. A number of medications, we have to consider that many patients are using more than one drug during pregnancy, and up to 3 to 4 drugs. And in this publication, nearly 70% of women are taking a medication in the first trimester during organogenesis period. So this old FDA categorization actually is missing some good information to the patients and to the doctors. We need updated evidence-based, detailed informative data, and that's why the recent FDA pregnancy and lactation labeling rule has been published in 2015, and they gave 3 years period for the companies to change their inserts, and that should be, the old should be removed in 2018 with the new data. What are these rules? The rules to collect pregnancy to include labor and delivery. Labor and delivery is included in this group, and nursing mothers is collected in a group of lactation, including nursing mother, and they added a new group, which is females and males of reproductive potential. And this is a new group. And they asked the pharmaceutical companies to discuss these issues in details in the inserts, like effect on lactation, risk of active metabolite secretion in milk, timing of breastfeeding to minimize infant exposure, and the drugs should not be used during breastfeeding. Also, females and male reproductive potential are discussed in this group regarding pregnancy testing or birth control before, during, and after drug therapy, and medications effect on fertility of pregnancy. As regards pregnancy, it has been well discussed in this new labeling rule, as the companies should have pregnancy exposure registry with lots of data and contact information for anybody to reach, and also data references in human and animal studies, in addition to risk summary for human, animal, and pharmacological studies, which include structural abnormalities, dysmorphology, which are malformation, variations, deformities, and disruption, embryo, fetal, and or infant mortality, miscarriage, stillbirth, and infant death, functional impairment, deafness, endocrinopathies, neurodevelopmental effects, and impairment of reproduction, and alteration to growth. Some drugs may affect the growth, intrauterine growth restriction, excessive growth, and delayed or early maturation. So these are data that should be included in the inserts according to the new FDA labeling regulations. And some drugs may affect the eggs of the ovary, should be stressed in these inserts or leaflets, like cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, cisplatin, and so on. Also, male may have some effect on the sperms, particularly if he is exposed to this drug 72 hours before ejaculation, because at this time, the maturation of the sperm is affected by these drugs that may have some teratogenic effect. So in conclusion of the replacement of the old categorization system by the new pregnancy and lactation labeling rule, this is a good step towards refinement of safety guidelines and good clarification to the patients and doctors regarding the safety of these drugs on advancing animal, human, and pharmacological research. And each company actually should include these data in the insert of the drugs since 2018. But if we look in a practical way to this new FDA pregnancy and lactation labeling rule, we will find some data are missing. We are clinicians, and we have our patients asking all the time and calling us about safety of some drugs for influenza, for fever, and for so and so. What to do about these answers not well addressed in these regulations. So the first, the missing issue of the recent FDA pregnancy and lactation labeling rule is the gap of knowledge for the doctors and pharmacists. The overall knowledge score in this study was 3 out of 7. So It needs more information, more simplification to understand what's the issue, what is the value of addressing these issues in the insert and about this drug for the patients, doctors, and pharmacists as well. The second missing issue is missing individualization. How to put all the patients using the same drug in one bag? How to ignore fetal age at exposure, placental permeability, maternal factors, drug potency, and drug dose. These issues are contributing to different effects of the drugs. For example, fetal age is affecting the drug. If the patient is using this drug and another patient using the same drug, but the fetal age is different, so the effect will be different. This is not addressed in this new classification or new categorization or new regulation. Before the 20 day after fertilization, the rule of all or nothing effect is practical, which means that either this drug will kill the fertilized oocyte, and this is the end of pregnancy, or it will not affect it at all. So the effect is either killing or not, all or nothing effect. So teratogenicity in this time is unlikely to occur. And this is important to inform the patients. Also, during organogenesis between 20 to 56 days after fertilization, teratogenicity is most likely. And this can be also no measurable effect, spontaneous abortion, sublethal cross anatomic defect, which is true teratogenic effect, covert embryopathy, which is a permanent subtle metabolic or functional defect that may manifest later in life, or increased risk of childhood cancer later on when the mother is giving, for example, radioactive iodine to treat thyroid cancer. If the patient is exposed to this medication after organogenesis, the second, third trimester, teratogenicity is unlike, okay, but there may be effect on the growth and function of normally formed fetal organ and tissues. All these issues should be addressed in every insert to highlight the importance of fetal age. What about maternal factors are not addressed, like drug absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion, which is important in effect on the level of the drug in the serum. For example, nausea and vomiting may decrease absorption of an oral drug. The molecular size of drug is not addressed. We have many drugs, many medications that cannot cross the placenta, despite being apparently safe, because they don't cross the placenta. They can lead to constriction of placental vessels, impairing gas and nutrient exchange, can lead to production of severe uterine hypertonia, which leads to anoxic injury, altering maternal physiology like hypotension and so, or can lead to fetal hypoglycemia if you give the patient high dose of insulin, which leads to maternal hypoglycemia and subsequently fetal hypoglycemia. Some drugs can cross the placenta, which may have the previous effects as already mentioned. What about the dose and duration? Many patients calling us that they received just one tablet or one capsule of this drug. Is it logic to put this patient in the same bag with the patient exposed to the same drug for 1 week, for 1 month? This is illogic. So single exposure versus multiple exposure, short period of exposure versus continuous exposure, this should be addressed. And these animal studies before the human studies, actually, they are not differentiating the period of exposure, the dose of exposure. They are exposing the animals to the therapeutic dose of this medication and make different comparison. But single exposure is not included. Short period is not included in most of these studies. Also, combination of more than one medication may increase the risk of birth defects versus individual medications. This is not addressed as well. So actually, we are in need of a new regulation and practical regulation to answer the questions of the doctors and patients in the era of internet regarding the inclusion of obstetric history, medical history, teratogenicity history, drug group, combinations, duration of exposure, risk factors, reproductive functions, age of the patient, and possible fetal effect. All these can be put in a computer-generated medication risk predictive model. We are asking for a computer-generated medication risk predictive model to add the data of the patient and the history, teratogenic history, and the dose and duration and type of the drug and so on. And we get results that used in other specialties. For example, this risk-benefit calculator of cardiovascular disease with different data about age, about different blood testing, and so on. You get a result of a score of affection. And this is actually a practical request. We are asking for it. Also, some risk calculation software has been recently published in preeclampsia screening and other prenatal screening. We ask for more softwares to address the safety of the drugs in a modern, simplified way to answer the patients and to highlight these issues for the medical doctors. I think by these items, we call for more research and more development and advancement in the field of drug safety or medication safety during pregnancy. Thank you so much. Thank you.